Welcome to True Tall Tales, where reality is stranger than fiction. My name is Sonny Boy, and welcome to a new episode of True Tall Tales, or Triple T. Now, as you know, we have a new guest that comes on the show every Tuesday, but one of my good friends, Jessica from the UK, said, we want to, you started this podcast because crazy shit happens to you all the time. That's why I started the podcast. We're hearing a different guest every Tuesday, but my friend said, we want to hear more of your stories, because that's why I started this. So today's episode will be a true tall tale from my own and not from a guest, but we will have a guest back on the show next week, or every now and then I'll do an episode. So basically, the other day I read this article. There's this American actress called Shay Mitchell, and she was getting attacked online because she was getting interviewed, and she's half American, and she was saying she was half American, half Spanish. When you kind of look like me and you're biracial, people always say, where are you from? And I say I'm Australian, but they say, where are you really from? Meaning, where are your parents from, or what's your blood? So this American actress called Shay Mitchell was getting attacked because she said she was half American, half Spanish. And they said, why is she denying her Filipino roots? And I read this and I was like, wow, I can really relate to that, because my mum is Filipino, so I guess I'm half Filipino. But, the Philippines were, the Spanish took over the Philippines for 600 years. So a lot of Filipino people do have Spanish blood in them. Like my mum's last name is Gonzalez from her dad's side. So, I can see why this American actress was saying she's half Spanish, half American, and not saying she's Filipino. And I don't know for Shay, because I don't know her and I can't speak on behalf of her, but I could relate to that article because growing up in Australia, when I was younger in primary school and high school, I was the ethnic person, in my high school, especially growing up in Bundaberg and stuff. And when, I don't know, it's weird. Times have changed now, but back then it was kind of like, you were embarrassed to admit that you were Asian, because back then, for some reason, Asians weren't cool. And I know that sounds really odd now because Asians are so in right now. Like my nephew Brody called me and was like, no, I tell everyone I'm Filipino. I've got Filipino in me because, things like K-pop and, ruling the charts, Korean TV, like times have changed. But back when I was growing up, it wasn't like that. And I'd never, watching TV, I never really seen any Asians in TV shows in Australia or any Australian shows. I would never see any singers that looked Asian or looked like me or what so. So it was kind of like I said, you kind of suppressed it, and it was embarrassing when you were younger to admit that you were Asian, or like myself, my mum was Filipino. So I used to say, oh, I'm, Australian, my dad's Aussie, my mum's Spanish. But technically we do have Spanish in us, but we would always kind of deny the Filipino, I guess, which is really weird. My sister did the same thing. She used to say she was half Australian, half Hawaiian. And I've spoken to a lot of people about this when they were younger, and we all have the same stories that we kind of suppressed it or never told anyone. And I don't know. And I think it's from, TV, movies, music, society, that back then it was kind of embarrassing. But like I said, times have changed now. This has stemmed for me for a long time, where I didn't even know my identity, because the way that I look, people ask me all the time, like, where are you from? I say Australia, but I think people get confused by me because my dad is white. I am half white. My mum is Filipino. She has Spanish in her. So, out of me, my brother and sister, I am the darkest one, if that makes sense. That affected me a lot from when I was studying acting, and I tried to, get into the acting world in Australia, but it was hard for me because I could never get an audition or get into the room because there was no role for me just by the way that I looked. And even though I'm Australian, and, that's what I love about the UK TV and American TV, they have people who look black, Indian, white. If they've got a UK accent, that's it. They're just from England. They're the UK, where I felt like Australia really didn't do that. And, my sister always says, why don't you go on Home and Away? And I said, because they don't put people like me on Home and Away from the way that I look, because I think they think it confuses the audience. I'm not sure, but that needs to change. And Australia is slowly changing with that, because we are such a multicultural country. So I'm surprised we don't see more of that. That made me, like, my agent in Australia at the time was like, look, the way that you look they will love you in North America. You need to move to America, you need to move to Canada or the UK. They love your look. It's kind of biracial, sci-fi. That's why when you watch like a sci-fi TV show or something, they all look like me because they think that's what everyone would look like in the future, which is kind of true if you think about it. So yeah, I moved to Canada based on that reason. I was getting auditions left, right, and center, and yeah, it was crazy. It was so different over there. They liked my look. They thought it was exotic, and I had the Australian accent, so I could play any role because people think I'm Italian, Cuban, Indian. Like I literally could get anything. To be fair, when I moved to Canada, to Vancouver, and I started going out at night, people stopped me on the street and said, "Excuse me, oh my God, can I get a photo with you?" And I'm like, "Me? Why?" And they're like, "Aren't you Russell Brand?" I'm like, "I am not Russell Brand. First of all, he's English. Secondly, he's white. I am Australian and like a brown Asian person, but I never got that in Australia. But when I went to North America, everyone was like, "Are you Russell Brand? Are you Russell Brand? You got the same eyes as him. You got the same mannerisms." And anyway, for anyone that I've told this story now, since I moved back to Australia because COVID hit, so that's why I couldn't stay in Canada. I get it all the time. People say the Russell Brand thing all the time, and I see it now. I do see it now. I never used to before, but I can see it now. He's a good-looking guy, so that's a compliment to me. Anyway, so where I'm going with this for this episode of True Tall Tales, for my tale is, I guess, it's got to do with my identity and how I was talking about the American actress Shay Mitchell. So about 3 years ago, I think it was, I was sitting on the trains in Sydney, and anyone that's been to Sydney before or lives in Sydney, our trains have one level here, and then we have a top level, and then we have a bottom level. And on the middle level, there's a seat here, and a seat here, so you can sit across from someone. And these days, sorry, excuse me, I just coughed into the microphone. How rude of me. And these days, everyone's got their ear pods in, or they got their phone, they're reading the news. There's old school people who have got the newspapers and they're reading it. Anyway, this would have been, I think it was during COVID times, and that day I didn't have a mask on. And you know what it was like back then. If you didn't have your mask, you had those people that would just evilly look at you, and you felt really bad. And there was those times that you forgot your mask and you needed to get from A to B, and you were quickly going to go to a chemist and buy one or get one from your work. So I didn't have my mask on, and I was sitting on the seat, and there was 4 people sitting across from me. And they were all lawyers or whatever. 2 guys had business suits on, and these 2 ladies who had corporate wear on as well. And the lady who was sitting across from me kept looking at me. I don't know, she would have been, I'd say, in her 50s. She looked like a lawyer. She was very professional. And she kept looking up. And I noticed she was looking at me. So the more I was looking at my phone, I could see her eyes looking up. And she wasn't hiding that she was kind of like staring at me as well, if you get what I mean. She was literally there, sitting there. Sorry, excuse me. Where's my voice gone? And she was just smiling at me. And I was like, okay, so she's not staring at me because I don't have my COVID mask on. She's smiling. Does this lady fancy me? Like, what's going on right now? And she was such a normal lady as well. Anyway, so I finally looked up to lock eyes with her, and she moved forward and she goes, "Excuse me." I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, here we go. This has got to do with a COVID mask or something." And she goes, "Has anyone ever told you how much you look like Jesus? It's just uncanny. It's actually very uncanny how much you look like him." And I just sat there, sitting there in the seat. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm on my way to work. As she's saying this, I could see all the people tapping twice on their AirPods, muting it, looking in, some gossip. Everyone loves a little bit of gossip on the train when some drama happens. And she was like, and I said, and as you do, I said, "Oh, okay. I've never got that before, but thank you. Thank you so much." And she was just like, "You could be the Messiah." And I'm like, "The what?" And she's like, "The Messiah. He's coming back, to show himself. You could be him already on earth, and you don't even know that you're him." And I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there with look like a stunned mullet. I'm now being told that I'm the Messiah that's coming back to save people on earth. This is 7 o'clock on a train. Now people are really muting their earpods and tuning in. And me, I'm a very nice person. And like I said to you, she wasn't some crazy person. She was like a professional person sitting there saying all this. So I kept saying thank you. And she goes, I just can't get the smile off my face. If I was to ever meet Jesus or the Messiah that's coming back, you would be him. You would be him. I'm like, oh, okay. And I said to her, and I just sat there, I'm like, what do I say with this? Because I kept saying thank you. And then I just looked at her and I said, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm not the Messiah. Hey, I'm from Bundy. And I said, people actually think that I'm Russell Brand. And then everyone started laughing on the train. And I think we came up to Town Hall, and that was her stop. And she got up and she walked closer to me and she bowed. She actually bowed to me like I was some messiah or king. I've never had anyone bow to me in my life. And she just said, thank you so much. You've really, really brightened my day. I really needed that. And I was like, oh, no problems. You have a great day too. See you later. Like that on the train. And I'm just like sitting there going, wow, I've just literally been told. I think I called one of my friends. I think I called Ainsley or something. And I was like, apparently I'm the Messiah. And she's like, what are you talking about? Are you high? Anyway, so that happened, and people were staring on the train in the carriage after she left, and they were smiling at me, and it is what it is. Everyone went back to their business, but I was glad that I made her day. She started her day with a big smile on her face, and she was, thought she met the Messiah or Jesus or whatever. So I'm not that religious, so I don't know much about religion, so I can't really go into it. All I know is the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. That's all I know. Anyway, me being me, because I have a big imagination, I get home, have a shower, poured myself a red wine, and she just got into my head. And I'm like laying there on the couch watching TV, and I'm like, what if I am the Messiah and I don't know? Because this is so like an American film, like the Messiah's come back, he's living in Sydney, Australia. It's me, he's a Messiah, and he has no idea, like, what am I meant to do with this? And I'm not even joking. I was like, what if I am him or it or whatever the Messiah is? Because I've been put into like a human body and I don't know. That thought actually went through my head. Kid you not. So I lay there, I'm half a bottle of red wine, and I'm looking at the coffee table, and during the, show that I was watching that was boring, I started looking at things. So I looked at the remote control and started to try to move it with my eyes, being seriously as well. Like I actually tried to do that. And it didn't move, obviously. And I convinced myself for at least 60 seconds that maybe I could be the Messiah, and like, what do I need to do with this? And am I a healer? Do I need to help people? But anyway, then I continued on with the rest of my day, and tomorrow was a new day, and I forgot all about it. And I even said to my housemate at the time, I'm like, do you think I could be the Messiah and I don't know? Ainsley was my housemate. She looked at me and goes, no, not at all. I'm so sorry, Sonny. You're not the Messiah. So anyway, there's a true tall tale that happened to me where I made this lady's day of thinking that she met the new Jesus or the new Messiah or whatever it is. And I'm glad to, I like to put smiles on people's faces. So like, again, from what we're talking about at the start of this podcast, identity crisis. Like I look like Russell Brand, the Messiah, because people, when I walk at night or something, people double stare at me. They double take. And I'm no Fabio. I'm not like a good looking person where people are checking me out. Like, I know that. But I think I don't think people double look at me because they go, is that bloody Messiah in the nightclub right now off his face on tequila? I don't think it's that. But I think it's people do think I look like Russell Brand, because it happens a lot if you hang out with me. People ask all the time. So maybe they double look and go, oh my God, that's Russell Brand. Oh my God, is that the Messiah? Oh my God, that's Jesus. Anyway, so this other story in this theme of my identity that I wanted to say is obviously I'm the darkest out of my brother and sister. So my sister's kind of like Caucasian, white, but kind of like brown, like Jessica Alba, where you don't know if she's Asian or if she's like a white person who's really tan that surfs all the time, kind of like that skin color, where my brother's white. I think he's got hazel eyes, freckles, rang a beard, black hair. So I look really, really dark. So us growing up, I am the baby, I'm the youngest. My brother and sister always used to tease me and say that my mum, slept with a guy named Kamal, that this Indian guy named Kamal that come over. And they always told me this. And they always try to convince me, and anyone that has siblings, I think siblings do this all the time, right? I think it's a normal sibling thing to do. But they try to convince me that that I was half Indian, and I used to cry all the time. And I don't know why I cried, nothing about Indians and stuff, but I was like, no, like, I don't want to, I want like our dad to be our dad. I don't want to have an Indian father. So being little and stuff, it's just, they've always said that. And it's not true at all. I don't know. I'm doing a DNA test. It's not true, but they always used to say that. So that's always stemmed, and it's always been a joke in our family and stuff, because I did come out very, very, very dark compared to my brother and sister. Anyway, cut the story short, which never happens to me, that anyone that listens to this podcast. I have this thing which is really annoying, that every time I get into a taxi or an Uber or whatever, and it's an Indian driver, you know how when you sit in the back, I always sit in the back seat, and then you've got the revision mirror. Every time I sit in the back seat, this happens a lot, by the way. If I see that it's an Indian driver, I just put my headphones in and I talk. And I get up, not that I'm rude, but it's gotten to this point that every Indian driver I have, they look in that revision mirror at the front and they look at my face. And they always sit there and they lock eyes with me and they start talking and they go, hey, how's your day? I can't do the Indian accent, by the way, if I'm going to try to do. I'm just trying to make this for people who are listening in their earpods of this podcast. It tries to make it more believable. So anyway, they lock eyes with me every time I get in an Uber or a taxi. And they go, how's your day? And I said, yeah, good. And they're like, where are you from? And I said, me, Sydney. And they go, no, like, where are your parents from? And I'm like, oh, my mum's Filipino, Spanish, my dad's Australian, and I'm born here. And they're like, oh, okay. I thought you were Indian. And I said, oh, okay, yeah. No, I'm not Indian. And it's always, and it's because every driver says this to me, it gets annoying for me, because it stems from my brother and sister teasing me. And they go, okay. So what's your name? I said, Sonny. And they go, but that's Indian name. I'm like, bro, I'm not Indian. They're like, okay. And like every time I have an Indian driver, they are convinced that I'm Indian and that I'm lying about Indian. Why would I lie? Like, why? Like, if I was, I was. Like, and, they say my name, and I remember I went to Barcelona a couple of years ago for my best mate George's Bucks, and everyone knows these stories that I'm telling you now about how Indian drivers always ask me if I'm Indian and try to have this conversation with me. But anyway, we had a van that was hired that was taking us somewhere on the Bucks in Barcelona, and it was an Indian driver. I said, in my mind, I go, here we go. So we all sat in the van. Out of all the people that were at George's Bucks, all the guys, I was the only ethnic one, and the Indian driver goes, hey, big one, well, this party, what are you guys doing? Like, it's George's Bucks. It's like, yeah, nice. And then I was kind of sitting close to him, and they go, hey, man, you. He's like, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from Australia. And he goes, you're not Indian? I said, no, I'm not Indian. And all the boys are drunk. So they're like, Sonny, you're Indian. And I'm like, no. And I'm sitting there like, no, I'm not Indian. I'm just Australian. And he's like, and he goes, you look like a very famous actor in India. And he's like, oh, no way, Sonny's an actor. That's hilarious. And I'm like, oh, do I? Yeah. And then I was like, and I never even asked to see a photo or video, because this has happened to me so many times. And then all the boys are giving me shit. And then like, he just like whips out his phone and goes, look, it looks like him, right? And shows the whole video. They're like, Sonny, you're famous Indian actor. Yeah, like that. And everyone's laughing, throwing shit at me, blah, blah, blah. And they go, his name's Sunil. And they're like, no way, his name's Sonny. Anyway, so cut the story short. I just have this like identity thing. But yeah, every time, if anyone ever gets into an Uber or a taxi with me and it's an Indian driver, I swear to God, experience it for yourself. They'll start asking me if I'm Indian, and then I tell them that I'm not, and then they think I'm lying. And if you're ever out with me for drinks and stuff, people think I'm Russell Brand, and they stop to ask me. I've actually been to the Establishment, which weird. I don't really go there. It's a very corporate bar in Sydney, and I was meeting a friend there. And as I was there, because I get everywhere early, as I was waiting for my friend there, the lady comes over, and I love tequila. I only drink tequila, by the way. And the lady comes over to me and she goes, okay, and a tequila shot for you. Would you like some salt and lime? And I was like, and I'm a very honest person. I said, look, I love tequila. I said, love shotting as well. Tequila's my favorite. I didn't order this. I think it must be for someone else. And she goes, no. All the group of guys over there bought you the shot. And I go, why? And she goes, I don't know. And then I turned around and it was like all these like lawyer dudes. They would have been in their 40s that had suits on, and they're on the other side of the bar waving, going, hey, Russell Brand, we bought this shop for you. And she goes, they think you're Russell Brand. I'm like, that is fucking hilarious. I was like, sweet, I should start using this to my advantage. So anyway, that's my true tall tales for you today. How people think I'm the Messiah, people think I'm Russell Brand, people think I'm Indian. The list goes on. Put your comments in. Let me know what you think I look like the most: Indian, the Messiah, or Russell Brand. If you do want to come on the show and speak about your true tall tale, please, I'd love to hear your story. I love the chat. I'm really enjoying this, and I love chatting to everyone. It's been really good, and I can see that I've got listeners from all around the world. You're places that I've never even heard of, by the way, because when people download it, it tells you what town they're from and what country. And yeah, it's really cool finding all these places that people are listening to. So I hope you're enjoying the stories. If you've got a story, please don't be shy. Reach out to me on my email of truetalltalespodcast@gmail.com. If you've got a true tall tale, I'd love to have you on the show. We'll do it over Skype and we'll get you on there. If you embarrassed to do that, or you don't want to, because there's a lot of shy people and you don't want to do that, please even send me in a true tall tale and I can talk about it like I'm telling my true tall tales now, and I'd love to share your story. Everyone's got a story. That's what I love about it. Everyone's got a legacy, and I like to share those stories because as humans, that's all we've really got. Stories that just go on and on and on and on, right? It's kind of like me being the Messiah, like Jesus. It's a story that's kept on going for years. But anyway, once again, follow me on the socials of Insta, TikTok, all that jazz. I will see you next Tuesday. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. My name is Sonny Boy. You're listening to True Tall Tales. Say hello to your mum for me. I don't know where I got that from. I think I got it from Rove. Or say hello to your dog for me, I should say. Yeah, I love animals. I love dogs. It's my favorite animal. Anyway, I gotta go. My ADHD is kicking in right now. Love you. Bye.